everyone, Jeff and Jay here with another edition of Jay's Big Adventure. Jay's the fuzzy one, and today we are reviewing this 2012 BMW K1600 GT, undoubtedly the best used motorcycle deal on the planet. Let's find out why. To truly understand what a good deal this bike is, a little bit of history and some context might help. So BMW has been building motorcycles since 1923. They started with an opposed two-cylinder motor with shaft drive, and they still build several versions of that bike today. In fact, most of BMW's fleet is still powered by a horizontally opposed twin with shaft drive. Now they've gone on and they've added more motorcycles, but for the first several decades, that was the only engine configuration that BMW sold. In the late 1960s, Honda started developing an inline four-cylinder with the engine across the frame. That became the CB750, and it turned the motorcycling world on its ear. Up until then, if you looked at Triumph or BSA or Matchless or Vincent, they were some variation of a twin-cylinder. They may be parallel, they may have been a V, but they were always just one or two cylinders. When Honda came out with a four-cylinder engine across the frame, no one else could compete in terms of the power and the RPM range of that motorcycle. So by the time the late 70s rolled around, BMW knew they were in trouble. And they started developing a new motorcycle. That was the K series. All the twin-cylinder bikes have been R series. So BMW came out with a four-cylinder laid flat on the bottom of the motorcycle, cylinder head on one side, crankshaft on the other, and the cylinders went this direction. The pistons went this way. Not only was it extraordinarily low in terms of center of gravity, but you could actually rebuild the motorcycle without taking the engine out of the frame. Take the head off that side, take the crankcase off this side, and you can rebuild it without removing the engine. That engine, it's called the Flying Brick, is one of the most reliable engines in the entire motorcycling world. They are notorious for going 200,000 and 300,000 and 400,000 miles. That bike came out in 1982 as the K100. They brought a three-cylinder 750cc version in 1985. In 2005, BMW came out with another revelation in the BMW motorcycling world, and that was their very first four-cylinder engine across the frame like the Japanese motorcycles, but the engine was laid at a 55-degree angle. You can actually see that on the motorcycle here. The engine is leaned really, really far forward. Again, drops the center of gravity, gives you more room up on top for a better induction system, and those motorcycles ran from 2005 to 2010. In 2011, they added two cylinders to that engine to create this, the BMW K1600 series motorcycles. And there are now a bunch of different variations, but they all have the same engine. It's 160 horsepower, 129 pound-feet of torque. And nobody does inline six-cylinder engines like BMW, and it is one of the smoothest motorcycle engines to be found anywhere in the world. That's what makes this bike special. It is extraordinarily fast, but because the engine is so low on the chassis, it actually handles really well too. That's what we're going to ride today. Hang on, Jay. I'll be interested to see if the engine noise comes through here. We're going to put the visor down because that definitely seems to help. So we just left Solitude and we are headed up to Brighton. We're going to go up over Guardsman's Pass. It's the back way into Park City. It's an absolutely fabulous road, and we will see if it's going to be absolutely packed full of campers and hikers and the Anti-Destination League. Man, I tell you, this bike is so smooth. There is just no vibration. I mean, just nothing. I get a little bit of a rumble from the tires on the road, there's absolutely zero engine vibration. It's like it's not even running. And I tell you, on a long trip, that makes a huge difference in your fatigue level, not having your hands and your feet go to sleep from the tangles. With this thing, it doesn't matter what speed you're riding, doesn't matter what speed the engine is turning, it's just absolutely smooth as glass. That's why BMW built this engine as an inline six. I mean, BMW builds the best inline six-cylinder engines in the world, and that's why they still do it today. Mercedes has given up and gone to V6s. You know, Volkswagen has the V6 or the VR6. And inline sixes are hard to package. They have other issues, but nothing can beat the smoothness, and I personally just love the sound as well. You put this up against a Goldwing, which is a flat six, it just sounds kind of like a truck engine. It's just not that enticing a sound. This is a 10% grade. It just goes like crazy. I tell you, it just never gets old. If you enjoy any kind of performance, this bike truly is in a class of one. I mean, there's just nothing else that is as quick as this is and as comfortable. And if you look at a Kawasaki Concours 14 or a Yamaha FJR, they're not bad. The Kawasaki actually is probably at least comparable to this in terms of performance. Does not have the smoothness, and it does not have the technology. Over Guardsman's Pass. Let's see what this thing is all about. I tell you what, it just never gets old. It just never gets old. The grunt that this thing has right off idle is just stunning. This is a 700-pound motorcycle. You would never know by the way this thing carries itself and the way it goes, especially down low. So it's 160 horsepower, 129 pound-feet of torque, but it makes 100 pound-feet of torque at 1700 RPM. So if you're stuck somewhere in traffic and you just roll gas on, I tell you what, you just cannot be sad on a winding road on this motorcycle. It is such a scream. Nice hairpin here. I'm gonna go nuts, but lean it over and pull the trigger. It's not a sport bike, but it's way quicker and more agile than anything this big should be. And yet, if you just calm down, it's quiet and it's smooth. And I've ridden this motorcycle over 1,000 miles in a single day, and it has crossed the continent kind of comfortable. And man, when you get to the windy roads, it is just a hoot. And that puts it in a class of one. There just aren't any other motorcycles that are out there that have the combination of handling and power and comfort that this has, especially when you factor in the technology. When the Concours 1400 is probably the best competitor. Goldwings are Cadillacs, and if you want a Cadillac, there's nothing wrong with that. But I don't want to have a Cadillac when I get to the fun roads. You know, I want to have something that actually wants to have a good time, right? I've said this over and over again. I mean, the difference between a Goldwing and a K1600 is the difference between your ex-wife and your current girlfriend. I mean, they're both doing the same stuff, but how do you put a number on enthusiasm? It's just really tough to put it into words. This motorcycle is a hooligan. It wants to have a good time. It wants to go fast. It wants to lean over. And the ground clearance on this thing is astonishing. See, I'm looking down there now. Got this big wide corner, but instead of going straight, it jerks over a little bit. And if you didn't catch that and you're counting on that road going straight, you might have ended up running out of pavement. It would be considered a faux pas. Okay, so we are back from our extended test ride, and boy, I tell you what, if you like to ride, if you like to go quickly, I just don't think there's anything else out there that is even remotely close to a BMW K1600, either a GT or a GTL. But let's just say, for the point of argument, that you want to try something else. BMW may not be for you. You may be scared of the maintenance costs or the parts prices, and I get that. So what other bikes are there that are out there that have something close to the same spread of performance and amenities of the K1600? The go-to bike is the Goldwing. They're 1800 cc's. They're also 6-cylinder engines, even though they're flat. Very smooth, very quiet. Honda's done a pretty good job of integrating technology. You can get them with navigation. You can get them with satellite radio and Apple CarPlay and a whole bunch of other electronics, which are great, but you lose the essence of what makes the BMW special, which is the performance. Look, if you want to drive a Cadillac as opposed to a BMW, that's perfectly fine, but you're giving up the entertainment value and the interaction with the motorcycle that makes BMWs special. So, if you really don't ride that hard, if you're not coming off of a sport bike and you just want to go out and tour the country, Goldwing's a great program. But you will not enjoy the twisties like you will on the BMW. So if you don't want a touring bike and you want to stay in the sport touring section, there are really only a couple of other choices. One is you can go with the Kawasaki Concours. It's a 1400, 158 horsepower, I think, so almost the same power, 151, I guess. But anyway, similar power, but only 100 pound-feet of torque, and it's at 6,000 RPM. The BMW makes that at 1,700. So if you're loaded up and going up hill in the mountains with a passenger, and especially if you're pulling a trailer, there's no question that the BMW is going to be a much better performing bike. The Concours, the biggest problem with Concours is that even through 2015, you can't get cruise control. Okay, so on a long distance motorcycle, cruise control is just absolutely, it's mandatory. You can do a throttle lock, but it's just not the same thing. Electronic cruise control is fabulous if you're going big miles. That's not available at any price on the Kawasaki. You can't get the adjustable suspension, you can't get cruise control, you can't get navigation, you can't get satellite radio, and now all of a sudden you're giving up a ton of day-to-day amenities that you may really enjoy for a bike that's still not going to perform as well. Major step down, and they're not that much less money. Okay, the other option would be to go with the Yamaha FJR 1300. On those bikes, you can get cruise control, you can get an electronically controlled suspension, and they're about the same weight, about 140 horsepower, so another step down in terms of power, again, another step down in torque, but they're not bad. They're just a couple of pounds lighter than the BMW, which doesn't hurt, but you're really giving up everything else on the bike. You're not getting satellite radio, you're not getting navigation and those sorts of things. So again, yes, you're going to buy one for less money, but there's a reason that it's less. So let's talk about the elephant in the room, which is the supposed cost of ownership for a BMW, the reliability and their maintenance costs. In the early 2000s, when the K-bike first came out, they had several issues. One, the BMW engineers decided that we really needed power brakes on a motorcycle, which is just nuts. It was expensive, it was heavy, it was complex, and when it died, it was really expensive to fix. Those bikes are 2005, 2006, somewhere 2007, I think, and they went back to regular brakes. I had a 2008 that did not have the power brakes. The system worked fine. Occasionally, you will hear about final drive failures because these are shaft drive bikes. They have a differential, just kind of like in a car, and those do occasionally fail. Usually they are on higher mileage bikes that have not had the oil changed on a regular basis and not been maintained, but it happens. It's much more rare than the internet would lead you to believe, but it's out there. They're $2,500, and if you have to go to the dealer, you can buy one for $1,000 online. And if you put a lot of miles on a motorcycle, any motorcycle is going to have failure points. So we'll look into those. With Harley Davidsons, it's cam chain tensioners that die. You have to take the whole engine apart for that. So that's not an expensive fix, and that is going to happen. It's just a matter of time. With these bikes, the rear end failures are pretty rare, but that's something to at least consider. The other expense that people are concerned about is the cost of regular maintenance. Easiest way to fix that is do your own. Get a decent set of tools, do your own oil changes, change your brake pads. Brake pads on a K1600 are $7. There's a company called Caltric. They make brake pads for a wide range of Japanese, European motorcycles. And rear brake pads are $7. Front pads, because it's two rotors, is $15. And they went 40,000 miles on my bike before I had to replace them. So those prices are better than most anything else that's out there. The K1600s have a much better reliability record for electronics. They don't have failure points with the engines and the transmissions. Those are pretty bulletproof. So if you do your own maintenance, you can own this bike for the same money you're going to own anything else. So that's not really a big issue. If it is a big issue, you can still buy a bike from a dealer and buy an extended warranty. I had one on the K1300 GT that I had before this. I had $6,500 worth of repairs that were covered for $300. Can't complain about that at all. I decided not to buy one on the K1600 because they were supposed to have been the next level of engineering, and I've been okay. I've got 65,000 miles on it. The only failures that I've had are the front wheel bearings, which died just this past year, and I replaced the front ball joints just prophylactically because I was afraid that that was going to be the next failure point, so I took it apart and did it when I had a chance. So that's really what this comes down to, is if you want to be involved in the ownership experience and you don't mind turning some wrenches, these bikes are not expensive to own. And they give you back something that no other motorcycle can give you, which is that breadth of capability. So I would say the biggest way to determine if this is something that you're interested in, go ride one. A store where you can take one for a test ride, or if you go through ridersshare.com, it's riders-share.com, or Twisted Throttle, you can actually rent one for a day or a week and actually spend some time on the bike. I'm 6'4". The Japanese motorcycles just don't fit me because I am so far out of their normal range for height. My knees are always hitting the back of the fairings, and the seat to peg distance is not high enough, and I feel cramped, and it's difficult for me to ride long distance. So for me, those bikes don't work. If you're under 6 feet, ride them and see what you think. Take the bikes down the same winding road as close to back as you can and see what your riding style is like. You may be perfectly fine on a Goldwing. They're wonderful bikes, they're reliable as stones, they've got all the current technology, you can even get one with an airbag. That's great if that's what you want. Not what I want. Ride the FJR if you can find one, those are harder to get. Ride a Kawasaki Concours and let your heart determine which way you want to go. Here's what I want you to think about. 3 years from now, you've still got 2 years worth of payments on the motorcycle. You walk out of work for a 45-minute ride home. What do you want to see in the parking lot? Do you want to see an outstanding motorcycle, or do you want to see a good deal? And that really is what's going to determine which way you go. So do your research, ride all three, and please, if you do decide to buy one of those three, leave it in the comments. Tell us what you bought and why, and how happy you are with your purchase. So that's it for this episode. Jay says thank you. Please watch the rest of our videos. Please like, please share, please subscribe, and we'll have another video up soon.